Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, a ridiculous local homeowner association tried to sue me claiming my outdoor jacuzzi is illegal. I countersued and absolutely trashed them. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the story. My homeowner association has been racist towards me since the minute I moved into my home, but for the most part there was nothing I could do about it. I had no choice when buying the home to join or not either, so I was stuck with them unless I was willing to try and move again. Which I couldn't afford to do and would not do that to my kids anyway. They were not even the kind of racist that I could partially deal with where it is subtle and I can attempt to ignore it. Nope, they were just flat out racist and had no issues showing and even flaunting it at times. Before I get into the main story though, I just want to give a few examples so when I sue them later, it doesn't seem to come out of nowhere. So one year around Christmas, as I was putting up decorations, they came over to tell me that if I was gonna put up a Santa on my lawn, I need to make sure it's a white one to not confuse the other children and give them the wrong ideas. Like, what kind of person just casually says that? Another time I was having a party for my kid, which meant an entire yard filled with black kids and parents. The HOA came over and started telling me that next time I should do that kind of thing indoors because people will think there is a gang going on. Yes, because all of the 8-year-old kids running around just screams gang activity. More minor things are referring to black people as you people and making comments about this area not being the ghetto. Just all those things that make me want to punch or yell at them, but I cannot without just reinforcing their own stereotypes of me. That was until they chose to start fining me for things that did not really exist and then suing me for a huge amount of money. The small fines were them being petty and claiming that I was not keeping my property neat, things were too loud, etc. I'll admit having 3 young kids means toys end up all over the place and screaming can happen. I knew they were not fining anybody else for this and just trying to harass me enough into moving out. That was when I built a jacuzzi in my backyard with some tax refund money. Think what you want of me wasting money on something for myself, but I don't care. I always wanted one and installed it to enjoy it. The HOA actually came to my house instead of sending me a letter, which to me just seems extra sus. HOA, what the hell do you think you're building here? Me, it's my new jacuzzi, and you should not be snooping around in people's backyards. HOA, that doesn't matter. You cannot have that thing. Remove it now. It's against the rules. Me, show me the rule that says I cannot have a jacuzzi. I bet you cannot find one. HOA, I don't need to show you anything. You probably bought that with some drug lord money like all of your people do. It's illegal and you have 1 day to get rid of it or we will sue you and take your house away. I was not scared of them and knew that things would escalate to a lawsuit eventually. One of my kid's best friend's dad was a lawyer and I asked if he would represent me just in case. I knew for a fact that I wanted a black lawyer just to make my win even better. I was not dumb and I looked it up before I built it to see if it was legal for me to have it. And there was nothing stating that I could not have a jacuzzi in my own private backyard. As long as the yard was fully closed in, there was no danger to other people falling in or something along those lines. I got another fine from them this time for a ton of money, but I was not gonna pay it. I knew they were about to sue me and just waited to get the notice and sick my lawyer on them. And of course it happened, and they wanted money and the jacuzzi to be removed. Going so far as to claim that they wanted to foreclose on my house due to lack of payment. The court was not happy with this lawsuit because it was clearly based on racism and nothing else. While the HOA can cause a home foreclosure due to lack of payment, it cannot be from a payment that they only asked for a couple of weeks ago. That just is not how things work. Plus, the judge agreed with my side in that there was nothing illegal about my jacuzzi existing. They sent an inspector to make sure it was up to code and the area was secure. The HOA was not getting a penny from me, but I was far from done with them. I filed a lawsuit against them on the basis of racism and discrimination against me and my family. No matter the outcome, their image was gonna be ruined the moment that this information became public. You can be sure that I was not keeping it quiet and telling all the news stations in the area about the HOA being sued on the basis of racism against one of the only black families in the neighborhood. They tried to claim the lawsuit against me had nothing to do with race and I was just being sensitive. That the comments they made were either jokes or an attempt to connect with me on my own level, whatever the hell that was supposed to mean. They asked me to drop the charges against them and instead tried to work something out. I refused and continued with my lawsuit. I had records of bonus fines plus other people admitting to hearing the HOA say these racist comments right to my face. The lawsuit was for over $320,000, which would be for pain and suffering and unjust fines and all of my dues back since I joined the HOA. I was demanding to be allowed out of it and for every member of the board to step down or be removed forcefully by the court. I was not messing around with these guys and showing them exactly what happened when they pushed a black man past his point of letting racism slide. There was nothing they could do and they agreed to pay me the money and step down just to avoid their names being dragged even further into the mud. I won't use names for privacy reasons, but everybody in the area knew about them and their lives were destroyed. Nobody wanted to hire them and the few that had another job lost it because of this controversy. I don't feel bad because if you're a racist so publicly, then you don't deserve to be in charge of anything. I was allowed to exit the HOA, but it didn't matter much because nobody wanted to now take a place on the board. The whole thing was tainted so badly it collapsed and there was just no HOA anymore. I expected some backlash from other people, but that never happened. It turns out, aside from the HOA board members, nobody else was really racist and wanted to go after me. In fact, some seemed happy the HOA was now gone. As for the money, I'm putting most of it aside for when my kids are old enough for college. If the cost keeps going up, then the money might be enough to send them to a good school. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I gotta say, I'm not surprised that most of the people in this neighborhood did not share the same views as these racist HOA board members. Because at least in my experience, most people are not racist and most people are actually pretty nice. It is just always these few rotten apples. And sadly, sometimes they are on the HOA board. Either way, the next one is a Christmas revenge story. My 30 female husband, 35 male, had 4 sisters, 3 older and 1 younger, though I don't know the exact ages. We don't have children, but we do have nearly 10 nieces and nephews, all ranging in ages from infant to high schooler. Since we don't have kids, we try and spoil our nibblings when we can for birthdays and Christmas while keeping things equal so no one feels left out. And by the way, I've never heard the term nibblings before. For instance, this year we spent a little over $50 a kid and they all got 2 presents, except the high schooler who we spoiled a little more since she is older. I wrap all my presents in candy cane wrapping paper if I can, so that everyone knows who it's from at a glance, but the other things I use for wrapping, like bows and labels, are arbitrary. The kids are gonna rip the presents open and barely look at the bows and labels, so why should I care which I use so long as the wrapping looks presentable? I also tend to buy in bulk when I buy wrapping supplies, so I don't have to buy more bows and paper every single year. And yes, this matters. Last year I was low on bows, so I bought a couple of bags from Costco when I got my paper. The Costco bows were apparently better and prettier than the ones I had already, which were from Dollar Tree. The only reason I know this is because last year I overheard 2 of my sister-in-laws complaining that I used the good bows on the other sisters' kids and not theirs. As if my bow and label choices showed favoritism. They even gave me the cold shoulder that night after presents were opened. I was annoyed at this because of how much we spoil our nibblings. I'd understand if we spent more on one kid than another, or if one kid got more presents than another, but that's not what happened. We made sure everyone was equal and even got them gifts too, $50 gift cards, even though they did not get us anything. I don't expect gifts from them or anything, but it just seemed incredibly ungrateful to me and a stupid thing to get upset about. Even my husband agreed that they were being ridiculous, so this year I'm being petty. I wrapped all the presents, went out of my way to use the same size labels for all the kids, and no one got bows. My husband thinks this is hilarious. I warned my mother-in-law of my pettiness, and she promised to let me know if she heard anyone complain. She also thinks this is hilarious. I'm excited to see how things unfold, or shall I say unwrap, tomorrow evening. Happy holidays everyone, may all your days be chill and your revenge be petty. Update: presents have not been unwrapped yet, but the aftermath is already there. I didn't expect to have an update at all, so here we go. Apparently one of my younger nephews, who might have some form of autism, was sad that he did not get any bows. He knew they were my presents from the candy cane paper and asked me where my bows were. Apparently, I usually give him 2 bows. I've literally never noticed that I do this. Like I said, stuff is arbitrary to me, and he asked why he didn't get bows this year. I played it off and told him that I forgot to buy bows till too late this year and assured him that next year he will get 5 bows to make up for it. He was happy with this, but I noticed my sister-in-law's exchange looks. My mother-in-law asked what she should tell them if they say something, and I told her to explain that I didn't want anyone feeling like I was favoring anyone, unsure if any other nieces and nephews will say anything, as not all of them have arrived, so we will see. Update number 2, with presents opened and dinner cooking, I bring you all the epic conclusion. For one, my mother-in-law told my sister-in-law why no one's got bows, and while they did not say anything to me, they've had a look all day of children scolded by their mama. However, I found the cause of all of this, well, other than old sibling rivalry causing the sister-in-laws to live vicariously through their kids. Essentially, they took me not giving good bows to their kids personally, but the real cause of all this is that apparently, for the past few years among all the kids, they've had a little contest of who gets the most bows. I don't know what the winner got, but they took this very seriously, according to the high schooler. Apparently last year, the sister-in-laws heard the kids talking about bows, and that's how the whole good and bad bow drama started. The kids were having the contest, not the adults. It also turns out that my arbitrary wrapping practices were usually the tiebreaker among them. I told the kids that next year I will roll a dice to determine who gets how many bows, and that I won't forget again. All's well that ends well, and I hope you guys all have a great day. And the next one is titled, Punished for No Reason. So I was a tax associate at the most well-known tax service in North America. I did very well in the class you take, which determines your eligibility to be hired as well as teaching you how to do taxes, and was hired. I bounced from office to office as newbies do, and I was doing well enough that I was always the first to be called if a shift needed covered. After my first season with them went so well, I was invited back for the next year, and the class was free because of the invitation bag. In case you wonder why the class is every year, it's because tax rules change every year and we have to keep up. Shortly after the class was over, which I aced, I was approached by the lady who ran the district. She wanted to open a seasonal office in a Walmart 50 kilometers outside the city I worked in. She wanted me as a primary associate there, in part because I'd done so well in the previous year, in part because I had aced the class, in part because of my background in security, and in part because I lived 20 kilometers closer to this Walmart than anyone else on staff. I was not to be a manager, but I was gonna be the only full-time associate. I would open and close almost every day, and often be the only associate on site. It was basically my baby to take care of. There were hints it might lead to advancements in the company as well. I was pretty excited at the opportunity. At first everything was great. The Walmart staff liked me, the customers liked me, my boss liked me. I was blasting through customers. Only maybe 5 people walked away due to having to wait out of the few hundred who approached my little office beside the produce section. 2 months in, right before the tax season really heated up, I had a weekend I'd booked off the same day they had hired me. I was going out of the province to see family, trip had been set long before they hired me, and I'd made it quite clear that I was not gonna be around. The schedule accurately reflected that, so weekend arrives and I go. Had a good time, came home Monday evening, so I could be back on Tuesday morning. When I got home, I checked my answering machine for messages. Even if smartphones were starting to be a thing, I did not have one, and I'm pleased to say I still don't. There was 3 messages, 2 from my boss, the district lady, and 1 from the scheduler. I don't remember everything word for word, so I will paraphrase. Message 1, Saturday morning, approximately 7 AM. Hi OP, sorry to do this to you, but we need you in today. Employee X, who we scheduled to replace you, has car broken down. Message number 2, Saturday afternoon, approximately 2 PM. I am very disappointed in you for not responding to me and not showing up. I'll be making some changes. Message number 3, Monday morning, approximately 9 AM. Hi OP, this is scheduler. Your hours have changed this week. Call me when you get this. Now, at this point in my life, I'm not a kid out of high school, and I've had enough experience with screw jobs that I'm absolutely not gonna crawl on my hands and knees, apologizing and begging for my job. If you're gonna be petty and mean just because you effed up, then we are gonna have problems. And so, we did. I called the scheduler and was told that I was suspended for a week and to call my boss after a week to get back on the schedule. She said the boss was trying to put me in my place and teach me how to be a good manager. I would get back on the schedule after the week was over. I brought up my pre-planned and scheduled time off, and also that I wasn't a manager, I was a regular employee. The scheduler was very uncomfortable, but she was only doing what she was told. They did need me, she said. I just call boss in a week. I said sure, and then didn't. I was furious, and I was not the one who was going to be put in her place. I called a few of the customers who I'd been working with and explained I was no longer working there, and they chose to keep me as their tax gal regardless. It really was not intended as revenge, even though it sounds that way. The company was not gonna make more than it cost to have someone do their taxes anyway. This was purely a customer relationship thing. I like to finish what I start. The real revenge was accepting my suspension. The entire week I was suspended, I made sure to stop in at the Walmart to see if I knew who they scheduled for my shift, and if we were friendly, then help them out with the quirks of this location. However, there was never anyone there. I confirmed with the Walmart staff. All week they had no one working there, paying Walmart to rent space and getting nothing but a bad reputation for it because the heavily advertised new location had 0 employees. It remained that way for the rest of the season. 2 months, the boss never called me and I never called her. Pride. I've no idea how it impacted her professionally. I stayed far away from taxes ever since. I got another job before my suspension was over and never looked back. ETA, full-time associate for the location, doesn't mean actual full-time hours position. My apologies, I should have made that more clear originally. This office was open 4 hours on weekends and 6 on weekdays, so I was not a full-time employee. And yeah, ripe stars, props to OP for working in such a place. That would drive me absolutely crazy probably already in the first few hours of working there. And ripe stars, I'm curious, have you ever worked in a toxic work environment? Let us know in the comments what happened. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. The other weekend I was in the wrong place at the wrong time and wanted to tell you about it. I am working a very weird shift at work and I got out that night at about 2 in the morning. I wanted nothing more than to just go home and collapse, but my car desperately needed gas. I was a walking zombie, and while obviously at this time the station is not manned, it is still open for self-service during the night. I start pumping my gas and zoning out when I suddenly find a woman right up in my face. She looks like she is entitled just by the way she looks. To put things simply, she looks like a Karen. To put things a little more complicated, she looks like the woman from my son's elementary school that makes every PTA meeting a living nightmare. And guys, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think PTA means Parents Teacher Association or something like that. Anyway, Karen, why are you not listening to me? Me, sorry what? Lazy poor workers. I said that I've been waiting at the pump for at least 10 minutes and you haven't come to pump my gas. Side note that I have only been there a few minutes and her car was not there when I pulled up. Also, I live in a state where, when staff is available, they pump for you, but self-service is also common. Me, nobody is working here tonight. You have to pump your own gas. Excuse me? I make more money than you could ever dream of working at a dump like this. Just because it's late, don't think I won't call your manager and tell him that you're not serving well of people. I finally realized she thinks I work here. I was that tired. Me, I don't work here, I'm just getting gas too. I want to go home and sleep. Karen, you will pump my gas right now. I'm calling the cops for this discrimination. Because I'm a rich woman, you think you can pull a fast one on me. I did not have the energy to argue, and she moved her car to block me in, so I could not leave. I was annoyed and just waited for the police. And yeah guys, don't we all know it, the discrimination that rich men and women face every day. I truly feel so bad for them, especially when they are entitled Karens. Anyway, it took forever for them to show up because it was not an emergency, and again it was the middle of the night. When they did show up, they went to talk to Karen first because she was the one that made the call. I don't know what she was telling them exactly, but the gist was that I was refusing to serve her because of her money and gender. I only wished the station was fully open so I could buy a coffee or energy drink. After even longer, the officer came over to me. He told me that I couldn't refuse the Karen service, and I once again explained that I did not work at the station. I was just filling up my own car and trying to get home after a long shift at a completely different place. I told the officer I just wanted her to move her car so I could get out and go home already. The police apologized and said they would tell Karen to move her car and go home. Officer, miss, this man does not even work at the station. You really have to move your car and let him go. Karen, no. I pay your salary and that means you need to do what I say. I donate thousands of dollars into this local economy, so if I want him to pump my gas, he will. Officer, move your car and go home. He doesn't have to do anything. Karen then walked right up to the officer and swung her big pocketbook at his head. She actually made contact and continued to swing it around wildly. She was hitting anybody that got in her way and the police were having a hard time getting close. Finally, one of them pulled out a taser and pointed it towards her. Officer, ma'am, this is your only warning. Drop the purse and put your hands up where I can see them. She did not listen, so the officer shot the taser and in a matter of seconds she was on the ground. She actually thought being rich meant that she could attack the police and force them to make me pump her gas. They had to call an ambulance to check her out, but they cuffed her and told her she was under arrest for assaulting a police officer. She kept yelling that they didn't know who she was and once they did, they would be sorry because she had enough money to get them all fired. If I wasn't so tired, I probably would have laughed at the show going on in front of me. They had to fill out paperwork and call a tow truck for her car so I could get mine out. The police saw how tired I was and told me I could nap in my car and they would wake me up once her car got towed. I tried, but I had too much adrenaline going and could not seem to calm down. She never stopped yelling even after being given the right to remain silent. The ambulance arrived and the EMTs checked her out with her also yelling at them and calling them stupid med school dropouts. Like, geez lady, are you always this charming or only in the middle of the night? The tow truck came and when Karen saw that it was lifting up her car, she started going even more ballistic if possible. She was saying that her car was worth $120K and the tow truck was gonna scratch it. Also that she had a right to have the car there and then finally pleading that she would move it away from my car if they just stopped towing it. When you get to the point of having the police tow your car, I guess they are beyond wanting to do you any favors. Her car was towed away to some yard and once she got released from custody, would have to go and get it. By this point it had been a few hours and the sun was already starting to come up. I was free to leave and the police had my information if they had to call or anything. I then went home and fell into the deepest sleep of my life. I did not dream or anything, I just woke up at about 3 PM and took a few minutes to remember where I was and all the events of the night before. I did get one call from the police later that day telling me that the gas station had cameras and they were not gonna need any kind of testimony. I was both relieved and slightly disappointed. I was glad that I wouldn't have to take time to go to court and give my side of the events. Sadly though, I wanted to go so I could find out what ended up happening with that crazy lady. I spent the rest of the day trying to think how rich somebody would have to be to get to the point that they figured they were above the police. That they could just attack them and demand things of people with no sense of getting any kind of repercussions. I never came up with an amount in my head, but I hope I never come across somebody like that again. Or, if I do, that it can happen at a much better time than 2 in the morning at a gas station. The next one is titled, I Guess You Don't Buy the House. In the late 90s, my grandparents had left a house behind on Walnut Avenue in West Seattle. As much as I wanted to live there, it was to be sold and divided among surviving relatives. A estate planner said the house would have been currently worth well over $1 million, will go for $350K, but might take some time. I knew the lady across the street wanted to buy the property and rent it out to keep builders from erecting a 3-story unit that would block her view of Seattle. I knocked on her door and told her we were selling and asked if she was interested. She tried to lowball me at $250K and I said no thanks, even if it took a while, we would get the full value for sure. She told me to my face that I was stupid if I thought I was gonna get that much. This pissed me off as I knew the property alone with unobstructed Seattle view was worth a pretty penny. So I started knocking on neighbors' doors letting them know the property was about to be listed, figuring someone would want another property on the same block. I sold the house to the 5th person that answered their door. The deal was done in a matter of days. I received a commission for the sale. The across the street neighbor who lowballed me called me up furious that I did not give her a chance to match the price. I said, you told me I was stupid for asking that price and that made me want to sell it to prove you wrong, and then I hung up. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.